Okay, so this one's quite interesting. Ahead of Computex, Asus has revealed that there's a new ROG ally. Actually, I spoke to
Rock.
Asus the other day, and they refer to it as ROG.
What?
Yep.
No,
No.
what? You destroyed my world there, Rich.
I know. We've been getting it all wrong.
This entire time.
There's going to be
All right, go.
a new
Go
Asus ROG ally. It's called the ROG Ally X.
Why not the LALLY? I don't feel any confidence in this anymore.
ROGALLY. The ASUSROGALLY.
I do remember being similarly sort of upset when an LG person said an OLED was an OLED.
OLED.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be like discovering that Xbox all this time was actually XBOX.
In fairness, this is in block capitals, though, so, could have gone either way.
Xbox was sometimes written that way, though.
It was the logo, right?
Yeah. Just saying.
Let's talk about the ROG Ally X. It's not a ROG Ally 2 because it's not basically a fundamentally revised design. It's more of a refresh in the way that Steam Deck was with the OLED model, but it's not quite the same.
Do we know if it still eats SD cards?
Oh,
There has been a redesign made. There was a good article from The Verge about the new ROG Ally X, and they didn't want to claim any kind of thing that was wrong with the SD card, but the whole thing has been redesigned. At least there's a new motherboard, for instance. But anyway, the key points are that, well, it is using the same AMD Ryzen Z1 or Z1, however you want to pronounce it, Extreme APU. The screen,
Extreme.
yeah, the Extreme, the screen remains the same, 7 inches, 48 to 128 hertz, a VRR display. That's a bit of a disappointment because even in the LCD space, the screen isn't really amazing in terms of color reproduction, stuff like that.
Better than original deck, but
It's better than that,
Yeah.
but it's not as good as the OLED by any stretch
No.
of the imagination. But VRR really is a game changer for these devices. They're talking about a larger battery. They won't say how much larger it is, just that you're not going to be disappointed, they're saying. So if we talk about the absolute extremes at the moment, that would be the Ayaneo Kun, which has a 75 watt hour battery. The original Ally only 40 watt hour. So hopefully it'll be something big and meaty like that, because obviously the key thing that's an issue with the ROG Ally is the fact that at full pelt you get less than an hour's battery life, which isn't great. Other things they're talking about, well, the thing's going to be heavier because of the larger battery, presumably. You're going to be able to slot in the larger 2280 M2 SSDs. You don't need to use the little dinky ones anymore, which I think is good for upgradability. Yes, the SD card slot has been moved away from the heatsink, so hopefully that won't be an issue. It's also going to be black. They've changed the colour.
all right then.
Neither of you guys have really had any experience of the ROG Ally, have you?
I have played on one, yes. 'Cause I know somebody who owns one. I spent an hour or two toying around with it. When the games are running, it actually does feel pretty awesome, I
Right.
must say. And it does feel more potent than the Steam Deck in that regard.
Yeah.
Stuff like VRR is really great. But man, the experience outside of the games, it's not good. Like, it's usable enough, but like the whole appeal of the Steam Deck remains like that Steam OS experience is really good. It's like the ultimate fusion of PC and console gaming into a single, OS, right?
Yes.
And nobody's managed to get there. And it's like, you just miss the features and like the flexibility and the fluidity of that experience when you play on a Windows-based device like this. Which is why, but I don't know what Asus could really do about that. right? Like they're kind of stuck with
Well,
Windows.
yeah.
Although, I mean, I guess at the same time, one benefit of Windows is that, Proton's amazing, but it's not perfect, right? There are still compatibility issues with some games. So I suppose the ROG Ally, with a slightly more specs and just like full flexibility on that, could probably run more games. I guess, like it should, right?
The main issue that I have with it is that it is a Windows machine, and you kind of, I mean, I've got my Ally set up here, and the way it's set up is that I've got a USB hub attached because I need a keyboard and mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
To basically set things up and make things okay, and then I can unplug it and then take it away and game on it, which isn't ideal, is it? You've got the Armory Crate, and I'm going to give kudos to Asus here, because they have actually dramatically improved the product since I reviewed it. And when I did that handheld roundup a couple of weeks back, the Ally was still really, really impressive. It was just the battery life was like the worst in class. You kind of need to have it in its 25 watt portable mode, which just chews up the battery life, because 25 watts on the SoC, plus the board, plus the storage, plus the memory, plus the screen, it's more than 40 watts. It's like 45 watts if you're sort of going for it, which is why we're getting sub-hour battery life. But if you move it back to 15 watts, you're getting approximate performance to the Steam Deck, worse in some scenarios, better in others. But ultimately, in that case, if I was working at that power level, I'd prefer to just work on the Steam Deck. Right, it's just a better overall product for that sort of power level. If you want to be playing the likes of Alan Wake 2 and Avatar, you need to have, you need to have that extra performance. Something which is being mooted, which I haven't actually mentioned, it's going to have more memory, and they're being a bit bizarre about how they've described this. It's going to have more than 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is what the current one's got. So I guess the options there are possibly 32 gigs, 24 gigs, possibly. It's tricky. What I will say is that Avatar kind of needs more memory than 16 gigs. Alan Wake 2 doesn't boot on the existing ROG Ally unless you start tweaking VRAM amounts. Because you've got to split that memory between system memory and VRAM. Right. It doesn't even boot. You've got to muck about to get it running. Avatar in particular, it's quite interesting when Oliver looked at it in his latest ray-tracing handhelds video that he couldn't get a consistent 30 FPS on the Ally, whereas I could on the One X Player 2, and I think that's because it had 32 gigs of memory. When you've got that vast amount of memory, you can just say, right, okay, I'm going to give 8 gigs to VRAM and the rest of the system. You could even have 12. So it solves that problem fundamentally. So I'm hoping for decent memory allocation, because I think that's fundamentally what it will need to get new games actually booting and running well. I think there is a bit of disappointment here that we're not looking at the Strix Point APUs, which kind of says to me that maybe that we're still waiting for that huge performance uplift that would actually justify a second generation Ally. What do you reckon, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, that's from my perspective. I think this is this will probably be a nice iteration depending upon what the battery is. I think that's my key takeaway always from using a handheld when I have, is that I want the battery life to be useful, because I don't want to be hooked up to a wall. Yeah. So I know obviously not everyone uses it that way, but but at the point, like, so you're getting the better battery life. This is not going to entice users. I think a lot of people got extreme FOMO with the Steam Deck OLED model. Like, they're like, I got this Steam Deck, I bought into it, and you betrayed me, Valve. I saw a lot of those posts on Twitter, at least afterward. Like, I could have just waited and gotten an OLED. It's so much better. But this, I don't know. Same screen, bit better battery life. We really have to wait and see what the memory. And I don't know if that's enticing to someone who already has a ROG Ally, but it is better for new time buyers. But at the same time, at the point where the handheld market is right now, yes, you can get your Alan Wakes and your Avatars there, to a certain degree on the higher end ones, but it's not always like the premier experience and how you'd want to play these games. And I feel like that requires a new batch of hardware that, like you just said, it's not here and we don't know when it'll be coming at the moment. The Strix stuff, which we talked about, was that last week? That stuff all is very exciting. So I mean, personally, if I were into the handheld market, I would say almost like this is still not enough. Maybe wait a little bit longer if you want a Windows handheld. But otherwise, Steam Deck OLED is awesome.
Yes, except you won't be playing the top end games on it.
You will not be playing the top end games.
But, you know, it really does.
Play Herod Halibut on it.
That's the most important thing.
I did that on the plane. It was awesome.
Anyway, Asus ROG, Asus ROG Ally X. I hope to get a look at that soon because, you know, something else that really sort of hit me when I was doing that handhelds roundup is that these sort of extreme power handhelds, you know, your Lenovo Legion Go's, your A&E Okuns, 1X Player 2s, they are really capable devices, but they are huge. They are gigantic compared to the ROG Ally, which, you know, still fits the bill. I've got it here as a decent handheld, right? And even if this one is going to be slightly heavier than the existing model, I still think it would be a really good device. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully get to see it soon.
I kind of like that form factor slightly more than the deck, actually. Like, the deck does feel like really like wide. And the ROG, it somehow just visually looks a little bit more, I don't know, there's something about the layout that just feels better to me. Yeah,
it's a well put together device. And I'm also happy just at the level, as I said, the level of commitment that Asus has put in. You know, all of cool. I mean, I was talking about stuttering issues that I had in the original review period. When I did the handheld roundup, that had gone, but it was still there on the Lenovo Legion Go. So it's quite interesting to see that, you know, Asus put the work in, they fixed the problems, and Armoury Crate does continue to improve. So yeah, curious to see what they got coming up.